Whew. All right. Straight out the movie theater review. This is my review for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And I guess let's start off the gate. Is the movie good? Yes. Two, is it worth watching in theaters? I will say this, though me watching it, first time watch, I will say it's worth the movie theater experience, especially for a lot of the scenes that are set up between Sonic and Shadow. But I will say this, if you want to save some money and watch it as like the full trilogy, like from Sonic the movie to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 to this one, I think it's worth it as well. But you can't take away some of those action sequences that the movie theater experience just gives you. So I would recommend that. Outside of that, what are my thoughts on the movie? It was very much enjoyable. Obviously, you don't see me on here screaming and shouting and praising the movie because it did have its flaws. But I will say it was very much enjoyable as a Sonic fan and a Shadow fan. I am a major Shadow fan. So seeing him in live action just brought a smile to my face. I was smiling along with the little kids that were in the movie theaters as well. And just having that experience of seeing him live action and doing the things that you've seen from Sonic Adventure 2, or maybe you played the recent Sonic Generations. No matter what version of him that you had an experience with, I feel like the movie does it justice, despite making some changes in certain areas. Outside of that, I mean, Sonic is Sonic. If you love Sonic from the first movie, you're gonna like him in this movie. And I will also say, there's a lot more of the Sonic characters up front and personal in this movie, which I wasn't expecting, but I did like more. For instance, like Tails and Knuckles, you really get a little bit more of their characters in front of the screen than you did in, of course, Sonic 2, where Knuckles was kind of like the villain, but then also turned into the good guy, and a lot more of Tails. Like Tails actually plays a major part in this movie, and that was something as a Sonic fan, once again, that really touched my heart. Another love that I liked in the movie is that the human characters are good. They play their part. But the human characters in a lot of these live action movies where you have a lot of animated or CGI characters can take the forefront of the movie. I felt like where Sonic 2 did that a little bit too much, especially like with the wedding scene and stuff like that. This movie really puts the humans on the back burner, but don't take them so much out of the movie that you still don't enjoy their presence where they're placed. So Tom and his wife in this movie are definitely like good supporting roles, but not in the forefront as main characters, if that makes sense. And then, of course, Shadow. I think the best move they made out of this movie was that they put Shadow in the forefront. Like the moment the movie starts, you get him. So it's not one of those like Power Ranger movie type situations where you have to wait to the end of the movie to see exactly what you came for the movie for. You get Shadow in the first 5 minutes of the movie, maybe even less than that. Maybe in the first 2 minutes of the movie, you get him. So if you're there to see him, you get a lot of him. And I will say his screen presence, Keanu Reeves doing his voice and everything like that, I can't stress this enough. You're gonna probably hear a lot of people say this. It's straight out of the video games. It just feels like Shadow. The moodiness, the stellar like action scenes of him running but gliding and then using his chaos warp in a lot of those scenes. Like you can't make that up. You can't be more excited if you're a fan of that character when you see those things happen on screen. It's just awesome. It's awesome. But I will say out of it, it was definitely a good time. The only cons I will probably say that come from this movie, and I don't know, maybe from the older community, I see that, I can't even talk. But I would say probably from the older community, the first two movies really felt family oriented. It feels like you can come and see the movie for where the adults can enjoy it, the kids can enjoy it, and then overall everybody could walk away saying it was a good time. This movie really felt targeted for the kids, despite the fact that this character that they brought into the Sonic movie lore has such a dark history that they took it and tweaked it down enough to fit that PG rating. And I don't know if that worked. I really don't. There's a certain scene that is memorable from the video games, or at least from Shadow lore, that you wait for to happen in this movie. And when it does, I'm not gonna lie, it felt very unfulfilling. Like, it was just like, that could have been PG-13. You could have did that a little bit more fitting to what actually happened versus the way that you guys made it happen within the movie. And there's a lot of other points where you can tell that they wanted to go serious with that situation and then pull the reins back for the kids with maybe like a joke or just making it way too corny. And it just like, it takes you out of that beautiful, like, personal and serious moment, and just brings that back to that level where like the children will understand it. But making it a joke or doing something silly just kind of like takes you out of it as an adult and as a fan of Sonic. But as a kid, I can see how it can make you really enjoy the movie, because the kids that were in the theaters with me that I saw, they were having a great time. They loved everything about it. Even the more emotional points that happened in the movie, even they were just like, they understood it. They understood it, and they understood how serious it was. But I think the biggest issue that came was that it would follow up with like a funny moment. And so something that they were like in awe of, they were laughing right like the next second. And for an adult, that can get kind of annoying, because it's just like, dang, you really ruined that moment with like a corny moment. But I get it, because the kids enjoyed it. So I will say this: if you're thinking of this as a family movie, you can sit down with your kids with, enjoy it with them. I will say, if you're not a fan of all that corny stuff that happens in these like PG like rated movies, you're probably really not going to enjoy this movie. I'll be honest with you. If you're not into none of that stuff, this is probably going to be like a 2 out of 5 for you. I'm not even going to lie. They go hard with that PG rating and making it kid friendly. Like, even the stuff that you would think, like, that's PG-13, they lower the level to make it PG so much that it kind of takes you as an adult out of the movie. But as a fan of the lore, as a fan of the characters, you'll grow to love this. And last but not least, I wanted to save this towards the end, because Jim Carrey don't get the praise that he should. This man is a comical genius. I love him. I love everything he's done, all the movies he's made. I could say off rip, he's probably one of the best parts of the movie. There was way more Jim Carrey in this movie, not because, hopefully this is not a spoiler, but not because he's also playing his grandfather in the movie, the other Eggman, but because, I don't know, they did it this way so that just as much as you get Shadow in the beginning of the movie, you also get Eggman. So it's just like two characters that you were hoping, okay, let me get enough of them in the movie so that like I can enjoy it. You definitely get them in the forefront. And Eggman's jokes, his humor, but also his serious moments really hit hard, especially with Jim Carrey playing both characters. You find yourself loving both of them. You find yourself enjoying both of their humor and comedy. There's even a scene in here that is just straight dialogue, and it's hilarious. I love it. It's hilarious. But there is a couple of scenes in here where they are just straight up going balls to the wall, like cartoon, and they're the humans in the movie. So I will say it can take you out, but because it's Jim Carrey, you end up loving it and you end up enjoying it altogether. So I would say if you're a Jim Carrey fan, you get a lot of Jim Carrey in this movie. If you're a fan like I am, you'll enjoy every minute of it. It fits his MO, everything that he is. You wish you can get more. There's something I want to bring up in the spoiler part, which I will do at the end of this, but I will say this: it can take you out a little bit, just because the moments that Jim Carrey, Shadow, Sonic, and all of them have, it gets cut down by the silly humor that sometimes come into this that is felt very much PG. So where you feel like some movies balance that humor where like the adults can laugh and the kids can laugh, it's like this movie makes sure that like the kids really laugh, but it might annoy the adults. But if you're a fan of Sonic, you might give it a pass. But if you're not and you're just there because it's a good movie, it's a holiday time movie you can go watch, like I said, this might be a 2 out of 5 for you. So overall, for me, as a person who loved the movie, as a person who ended up like buying a ticket for it, sitting in the theaters, getting my food and enjoying it, I would have to say that Sonic the Hedgehog 3. As a Sonic fan, it's a 4 out of 5. As a movie fan, it's a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it's not really built towards family. It's really built towards kids. Which one am I going to lean on more as a recommendation for the audience? I'm going to have to go with a 3.5. As it's just like, I don't know if enough people are out there who even know who Shadow the Hedgehog is. And if you do know him and you do love him, you're gonna love this movie because he's smack dab in the first act of the movie towards the end of the movie, and so it's worth watching. If you are a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog or just Sonic lore altogether, but like I said, I could just see people who are going to take their kids to this and look at it for the family fun that the first two movies have, and they're gonna walk away feeling like this was way more targeted for the kids, way more targeted for the kids. So there was even a moment where I felt like I shouldn't be sitting in here watching this movie because it just didn't feel like my age demographic should be watching this. And it was just like, though you can get the humor, though you can take your mind out of it and just enjoy it, it just really felt uncomfortable sometimes. It's just like, these jokes are not for me. Like, this scene is not for me. And I can't really relate to this because it's very childish. But if I had a kid and he was watching this movie, or like the kids who were in the movie theaters and they were watching it, they really enjoyed it. So I could say it worked, but just not for me. So as a family movie, it's definitely a 3.5. For kids, it'd be interesting to see if, what the younger demographic would think about this movie, because it's not even targeted towards teenagers. When I say like it's for kids, teenagers are not included in this. The corniness might even turn away teenagers. That's how PG that they go with this. That it's almost feel G-rated in a lot of rated G in a lot of situations, especially situations that should have been taken seriously. But overall, great movie for me as a fan. Because like I said, as a fan, it's a 4 out of 5. So 3.5. So 3 out of 5. Basically, I rate this movie rated gold. I will say it's worth watching in theaters. You don't have to wait for the stream, but if you do, it is a good trilogy to watch all together through, and I can't wait to see what the next trilogy brings up. Also, before I end the video and go into the spoiler section, I will say this. For those who are interested, there is 2 post-credit scenes. There's one mid-credit scene, and there's one at the very end. That I think everybody who is interested in what the next series of Sonic movies are going to be are really going to enjoy it. So stay for a little bit, catch the post-credit scenes, and overall, if you can see it in theaters, see it in theaters, but if you can't, try to watch the whole trilogy at home when it hits streaming, and I think everybody will enjoy it. Outside of that, that was my movie review, and at this moment, I'm going to give you a chance to walk away. I'm going to give you to the count of 5, and then we're going to get into the spoiler section, because there is something I did want to talk about. So let's go into 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So if you're still here, that means you watched the movie. Congrats to you. Like I said, for those of you who love the Sonic movies, this is a 4. This is a 4 out of 5. This is rated platinum. But once again, I left it at a 3 out of 5 just because of the funniness and the corniness that comes from the movie. Because though they start the movie off being very serious and letting you know where the tone goes, there's a lot of things in this movie, man. Like the joke, like I would say this, the dance sequence with Eggman, when the Eggmans are dancing, really takes you out. It really takes you out after a certain point, because it's like, it's funny and it's supposed to be humorous, but it's just like, man, it's like, there's some, like, this is supposed to be like a big scene, and we're taking like a chunk of the movie to show this. And as funny as it is, it literally, you feel like you're wasting time. It's like, man, we could have filled this scene up with something else, something a little bit more serious, or even something that like moved the movie forward. This was literally just allowing Jim Carrey to be Jim Carrey. And if you're a fan, it doesn't bother you. But even as a fan of Jim Carrey, I just felt like this was way too much. And I felt like he was really phoning that part in. Like I said, the Shadow the Hedgehog stuff is cool. I don't like the fact that it kind of changed his origin story up just a little bit, just a little bit. Of course, you're trying to fit it into the new movie lore that they set up here. Him coming in the meteorite, being found, being experimented on. Then he meets Maria. Maria befriends him, and then Maria dies. I really didn't like how PG they went with Maria dying because it really didn't make any sense. She was in the middle of the two, so when the bullet hits the chaos energy and causes the explosion, Eggman should have died, but he was alive, and he was up before Shadow even comforting Maria, and Maria was dead. So it's just like, how did the other two die? But she being in the middle took the blunt of it. It just didn't make any sense to me. So that was like, you know, there's not much you can say about that. I would have preferred the actual video game origins of how she died. But like I said, it's made strictly for the kids in this movie. Outside of that, like I said, I won't be too long with the spoilers because you just got to go see the movie yourself. The final act is the best act of the movie. And I feel like this was a bookend to Eggman. I don't see how you do another trilogy leading up to Sonic 6 with Eggman still being a part of it. I think this was a perfect send-off for Jim Carrey. I think you end it there. I think if you bring him back for the final Sonic movie, but I think this was it. I honestly don't see how he comes back. But at the same time, they will find a way to implant him. I just don't want him to be the villain for the next 3 movies, especially with that post-credit scene with catching Metal Sonic and Amy. I think that's a very interesting way to go with making Metal Sonic maybe the villain, but I don't know if that's truly the route they might go because there was like an army of him. There's usually only one. So it's going to be interesting if they're going to do that, where it's like there is like a main Metal Sonic and he's maybe controlling like an army of Sonics, and that be the play of the movie. Having someone who is a carbon copy of Sonic the Hedgehog, and then having Amy dynamic in the movie will be interesting to see how that works out. Especially, I didn't catch who was voicing her, so it'd be interesting to see how that turns out. And then the final post-credit scene just showing that Shadow's still alive, and there's already been talks about doing a spinoff, so it's just like you just see where that's gonna go, and then eventually they'll probably bring them in for a story where, you know, they might have to have him team up with Sonic. I think the Sonic movies move forward in the next trilogy as the next movie obviously being Metal Sonic as the main villain and the corporation that makes Metal Sonic. I think the third movie you go Silver. Do you make Silver the villain? I don't know, but hey, if you want to go that route, you can. Just because I just see how they're going about it with like all the creatures that come from those other universes being like bad guys in the beginning, but then becoming good guys or at least teammates to Team Sonic. But I think the final movie, I think you end it with Liquid. I think Liquid should be the final villain, and I think that's a way that you can bring Shadow back into the fold as a main character. And I think you give the Liquid fight that was from the video games where Super Sonic and Super Shadow end up fighting him. I think that works perfectly, and you can add in Silver as a component, as a friend who can also help battle him. So I think if you make Liquid the final boss, I think that works perfectly. And even then, if you want to bring Eggman back for that one, go ahead. But I think this was a perfect bookend to Jim Carrey not playing Eggman anymore. I think that was a perfect send-off. I love that scene. It was very emotional, not to the point of like you were crying tears, but you really felt what they were trying to get across with that scene. And I loved it. I thought it was a good scene. I just hope they don't bring him back. It's just, that was a good bookend. Cut it off. But I'm pretty sure, you know, this movie's going to make money. If Jim Carrey wants to come back, I won't be a problem. It won't be a problem for me. But it would be interesting if he did want to come back, if that's the route that they go. So outside of that, if you watched all the way through, I appreciate it. Give a like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'll be coming up with more stuff. I watch things on Netflix, streaming, and movie theaters. So just be on the where you know, keeping on the loop of all the stuff that I'm going to be reviewing. And until next time, burrs.